السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله الذي رفع السماوات بقدرته وبسط الأرض بحكمته وأنزل الغيث برحمته وسخر الشمس والقمر والنجوم بتقديره العزيز العليم وجعل الليل والنهار آيتان مبصرة لتبتغوا من فضله وسخر الريح بأمره كيف يشاء بعلمه وهو العليم الخبير. الحمد لله الذي خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار خلق الإنسان وعلمه بالقلم. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أحد صمد هو الأول ليس له بداية هو الآخر ليس له نهاية هو الظاهر ليس فوقه شيء هو الباطن ليس دونه شيء وهو عليم بذات الصدور. وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله والبشير والنذير الذي بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد لله حتى أتاه اليقين. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تحسبن الله غافلا عما يعمل الظالمون إنما يؤخرهم ليوم تشخص فيه الأبصار مهطعين مقنعي رؤوسهم لا يرتد إليهم طرفهم وأفئدتهم هوى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My respected brothers, sisters, and fellow youngsters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made many things very clear, but He's made one thing explicitly clear for a person who understands Islam or does not understand Islam, and that is He has clearly prohibited dhulm. Inna Allah harram dhulm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith al-Qudsi, Ya ibadi, inni harramtu dhulma ala nafsi faja'altuhu bainakum muharrama. O my servants, I have made oppression forbidden upon myself. Allah has no limitations, but it is not the right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His mercy, from His justice, does not allow any form of oppression to be done. وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تُظَالِمُوا. And I made it forbidden amongst every single creation of mine. Dhulm is such an evil thing that even if a creation that has no accountability on the Day of Judgment, which are animals, that if they oppress one another from the same breed, on the Day of Resurrection, this dhalim, this creature that did dhulm on another creature from the same jins, from the same naw', from the same type, Allah will bring them alive and have justice provided even in the animal kingdom. Imagine human beings who do dhulm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to the zalimeen. And at the same time, He speaks to the madhumeen. He speaks to the oppressors, the transgressors, and He speaks to the people who are being oppressed. Because sometimes those who are being oppressed feel like no one's addressing them. Allah says clearly in the end of Surah Ibrahim, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا أَعَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Don't think that as an oppressor, as a transgressor, you are doing what you're doing, it is being unnoticed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows every single move of an oppressor. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ. We're just delaying the punishment. سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. Allah says we give them respite. We give them respite. Then we grab them and then we punish them. إِنَّ بَطْشَ رَبِّكَ لَشَدِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He grabbed, وَإِذَا أَخْذَ رَبُّكَ إِذَا أَخْذَ الْقُرَى وَهِيَ ظَالِمَةٌ إِنَّ أَخْذَهُ عَلِيمٌ شَدِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about when He grabs people accountable. It happens in this world and it happens in the next world. But before I go in deeper into this discussion, brothers and sisters and friends, the strength and the element of Islam is unity. Is the fact that we're all brothers and sisters. The minute that we lose this ingredient in our lifestyle, in our families, our brotherhood and sisterhood, it doesn't matter what we do, how much we pray, how much charity we give. فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ مُصْبِرٌ. Allah says very clearly, the greatest generation that came to this world was the generation of the companions. تَنَازَعْتُمْ. You were divided, فَتَفْشَلُوا. You saw what happened in Waheed. When a community of righteous people is divided, with their supplications, with their contributions to Islam, when they're divided, Allah's help is lifted. And kufr. لا يقاتلونكم جميعا إلا في قرى أو محصنة أو من وراء جدر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Hashr, the element of disbelief, people who don't recognize the oneness of God and the purpose of humanity, Allah says, بَأْسُهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شَدِيدٌ. They're built on animosity. This is a very deep ayah. This is very powerful to understand the components of how people attack Muslim communities. بَأْسُهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شَدِيدٌ. They don't like each other. And it's very clear, but if you look at the history of Europe, war after war, World War I, World War II, nothing to do with Muslims. It was Europe that fought against each other. And Muslims were used from India, from other Muslim parts of the world to fight and liberate those who are oppressed. So when they say Muslims are oppressors, just talk about modern history and talk about the amount of genocide and ethnic cleansing that's happened in Europe. بَأْسُهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شَدِيدٌ تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. This is clear. This is an unbelievable ayah. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. You think they're all together. They meet at Geneva, at G20, at G7 summits. You think they're all together. They're only united in one cause. That is, how do you deal with Muslims? And I'm saying that in a very political manner. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. They're all divided in their men. You can see even in our political landscape in the United States of America. You can see what happens in the nasty propaganda that is used against humans. Personal attacks on oppositions who are running against in office. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. This is not Muslim behavior. This is not human behavior. This is not ethical behavior. That you bring out the dirty laundry of a politician. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. So what happens? Allah is saying they're all divided. But what happens when they're all united? And they're only united on certain causes. On the causes of batil. And a long-term agenda. And we saw what happened in this world today. We're seeing this. When you look at Muslims in Syria for the past 11, 12 years, no one's making an issue about it. When you look at the Muslims who are suffering in Palestine for over 60 years, there's discussion, and if you do too much on social media, you'll get flagged. As a preacher, as a clerk, if you talk about it too much, you'll have the FBI at your door. Then you look at Yemen. And then you look at China. And then you look at Rwanda. Even African countries. And Sudan. No, the world did not unite to discuss their situation. It's a conflict within the Arabs. This is not related to us. It does not affect us. This is their mess. Let them clean their mess. This is not a mess, first of all. And it wasn't their mess, first of all. And then when we see the same happen to a European nation, blue eyes, blonde hair, white skin, it's an international matter. What is this? This is complete ignoring of the rights of Muslims and Muslims, children, women, innocent people of the world. The Chinese, the Uyghurs, people in Rohingya. What happened? What has happened? All of a sudden we recognize there's oppression happening in the world and Muslim people were not suffering for years? Decades went by. And this matter, we Muslims also, we sympathize with the oppressed, the one who's being oppressed. We don't stand with an oppressor, but it's so difficult. The time comes. The Prophet ﷺ said, it's even hard to recognize who's on the truth. Like we can't recognize, a Muslim will be fighting and not knowing, I don't know what side I'm on. Who do I support? Brothers and sisters, the element of Muslim community of success is unity. And al-mu'minuna kal-bunyan. The believers are like a structure. يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. We strengthen each other. The believers are like كَجَسَدٍ واحد. We're like one body. إِذِ اشْتَكَى رَأْسُهُ اشْتَكَى كُلُّهُ إِنِ اشْتَكَى عَيْنُهُ اشْتَكَى كُلُّهُ. When the head hurts, the eye hurts, the entire body complains. And this is why our community is very special. The Muslim community generally, if you go to communities and masajid in the world, you will have people, khatib, speaking of other countries who are not even from that country. You would go to a community that is in Chicago, who are Middle Easterns. They will be speaking of the situation that happened in Bosnia 20, 30 years ago. This is how unified we are. And today, as we look at the society, we see what is happening in India. And I'm sure we've been hearing about this for multiple khutbahs. Nothing to ignore what's happening in other parts of the world. This is all a tragedy. But the structure is dhulm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept dhulm. And Dr. Gregory Stanton has 10 stages of genocide. What is the process of genocide that happens in society? If these processes are not identified, then you know there's going to be an ethnic cleansing that has already started in parts of the Muslim world. And when you look at India, you're looking at 2.4 million Muslims. 204 million Muslims. Over 200 million Muslims in India, that is equal, if not some places, more than the Muslims in Pakistan. That's how many Muslims are in this country, and you have extremist, far-right Hindus who are killing and taking the rights of these Muslims. And no one's talking about it. This is happening for years. So the first thing, and he's an expert, he's studied the world and how genocide happens in the world. He says the first way genocide happens is classification. People start to classify themselves, I'm Indian, I'm Arab, which is very innocent. It's good to have your identity, your ethnicity, as long as it's not biased. So it starts off a very innocent way. That's what Nazi Germany did. They made sure that people were recognized who they were, just to identify who you are. These are Jews. We didn't make this very clear. They're not Germans, they're not part of our culture. Similarly, it's just a very soft approach, and it sounds very innocent. Then the second stage in symbolization. Then they start calling people by their names. These are and it becomes a little bit derogatory. Jews, Muslims, Gypsies. They'll call people by their names. And it sounds very innocent. So they give them symbols. And then it moves to discrimination. People are not given their rights. You see with black people. You call them Africans, you call them names, you see the way they're treated. Discrimination is something that we find very popular in our community. I had a friend of mine, a student of mine who went to university in Arbor, Michigan, did his bachelor's, did his master's in engineering, qualified young man, originally from Somalia. He applies for jobs for 6 months. And of course, in his CV, in his ethnicity, what is he? He's black. His background, his race. Doesn't get an interview anywhere. After 6 months to 8 months, he realizes, I have a perfect letterhead, recommendation letters. No one's interviewing me. I'm graduate. I put money into my life and time into the best school in the state. Here I am not getting a job. So what he does is he changes his race to Caucasian. Just changes black to Caucasian. Interviews after interviews. Interviews after interviews. In 2 weeks he was hired. But when they saw him, they're like, you're not Caucasian. 3 years later, the staff comes up to him from the HR department, says, you lied at the interview. During COVID, you lied. And then he had to discuss this again. Long story short, you can see the clear discrimination in our society. To women, to black people, to Muslims, to practicing Muslims. And you find this even in Muslim countries where practicing Muslims are discriminated. This is a form of dhulm. Then it goes, the first three sound very, they don't sound life-threatening, but they are painful. They're innocent stages. Then Dr. Stan says, dehumanization. This is the exact same process that happened in Spain. They're not humans. They're not humans. They have no value. Look at them. Look at the way they live. Look at the way they eat. Look at the way they dress and celebrate. They're not humans. And they call them extreme hateful names. This is what they did to the Muslims in Spain. In Spain, the Muslims, this is the Moors, the Moorish, you could say. Those people who were Muslims who converted to Islam when Islam came to Spain. From Christianity to Islam. They were not immigrants from the Berbers or from North Africa. They were original Spaniards. When they converted to Islam, then, of course, the Inquisition happens. Now these people are converted back to Christianity. How many years go by? These people are over 200 years, 250 years go by. These people are Christians. They go to church. They eat pork. One of the biggest symbols that you were a Christian and you were not a Muslim is you ate pork. Pork celebrations happen particularly and only just to make a stance against the Muslims who did not eat pork. And the sign that you didn't eat pork, you were a Muslim. So what happens? After 250 years, they recognize that these people, their blood is poison. In our language, their blood is najas. And that's what happened. The purging of Muslims of Spain, of the Moors of Spain. They had these people who were Christians for 200 years killed or leave the country. The king decided, the Pope decided, these people can never be pure again because they were Muslims. 200 years ago, their forefathers were Muslim. And they oppressed them. And they tortured them not because they were Muslims, because their forefathers, 5 generations above, were Muslims. There are books written on this. So you dehumanize these people. You call them names, you call them terrorists. And once you dehumanize and you give them symbols, you polarize the next organization. Organizations are made. Again, they're counter-terrorism. They call them counter-terrorism organizations. Counter-extremist organizations are made particularly to monitor these people. There is no abuse yet. Then polarization. Then laws are made against these simple and innocent individuals that forbid these people to have rights. And they're called names like terrorists and extremists. Then preparation is made. What do we do next? Then persecution starts. And this is where people are like, oh no. Why when persecution starts, people are like, let's talk about it now. Let's give a khutbah. It's too late. People are being oppressed. All this happened. They've organized, they've been preparing, they have been polarizing Muslims all across the country. And then all of this is in the name of, like, when you polarize it, this is a democratic country, these people have not assimilated. Talk about Muslims in India do not have the rights for citizenship in India, and they've been there from 1924. The citizenships of Muslims in Burma was snatched from them in 82 because they were Muslims. They were indigenous people. Just like the natives were not given American citizenship when they had asked for in the early 1900s. You just polarize the situation and then you start persecuting them. And then your extermination starts. Then the people start killing. People start killing. And nobody says a word. A girl, you saw this video that went viral? A girl is coming to college, coming to school. You have to see this video. This shows you the bravery of a woman, a young girl coming to college to just study, and her hijab is being pulled off. And hateful things are being said, mobbed, literally mobbed. Imagine this being our sister or daughter. She is our sister from the Ummah. And she's being mobbed by over hundreds of Hindus, extremist Hindus. I want to be very careful. There are also very good Indian Muslims, non-Muslims, excuse me. They all to brush everyone under the same category, it's not acceptable. Extremist people, mob, and no one is saying nothing. Girls and children are being killed, and the army is watching and organizing this hate crime. Masjids are being burnt down. Mass killings and shootings are happening. Their properties are being robbed. Their rights have been taken from them. And I saw a video recently. It's authentic. This is not like, oh yeah, WhatsApp stuff. Where a friend of mine from San Diego sent me a video and said, Shaykh, look at this. I looked at it. He said, you must see that. I opened it. It was Muslims, at least 500 of them in the village. And this extremist Hindu member is doing mass conversion of these people to Islam. And it's like a 5-minute reading. I denounce my religion. I denounce the Quran. I denounce Na'udhu Billah Muhammad. And then affirmation of their text. And wordings. And these women, you see them in our culture, we call it dubatta, rida. They're wearing sheets over their heads. They're wearing coverings. They're pure Muslims. And they're being literally, in Christendom, you say baptized. You're just converting them, and the world is watching. And the man says in the message, Shaykh, I am crying. Crying is not going to help. And then I made the intention, and I make the intention in front of all you, may Allah make it acceptable, that a time will come, we will also make a video where millions of people accept Islam, and we'll spread that video. Say Ameen. We don't cry, we act. People have been crying for years. What inspiration do you get from seeing something? Wallahi uqsim billah, this was at the moment I made a dua, said, Allah, I have to be part of the opposite side of this. With love and peace. So this is what happens. Muslims and poor people are they start with the poor. Think about how they started in Mecca. Had they touched Uthman bin Affan, it would have been different. They went after Bilal. They went after Khabbab. They went after the poor people like Sumayya and Yasir. No one could stand up from them. The Prophet, all he could say to them, Sabran, sorry, I can't help. Sabran ya ala Yasir fa inna maw'idakum al-jannah. I can't help, I'm so sorry. To such an extent, Khabbab comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ala tastanziru lana ya Rasulullah. We can't take this anymore. The Prophet said, وَلَكِنَّكُمْ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ I can't help. A time will come, Allah will bring the help. But that's how they start. They start with the poor, the weak, the vulnerable. But remember, تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. So what's the opposite of that? We have to be united. To think that we can't divide an entity that's built on disunity, but they're united for one cause, but we are built on unity, but we're divided. The whole complete opposite. And the last but not the least is the scariest, is denial. What's going on? Nothing's happening. You speak to people, and people who know a little bit about what's going on in the world, they're complete denial. And that's a big quality of a dhalim. A husband who's doing dhulm on his wife, denial. I'm not doing dhulm, look at her, she has everything. What's she complaining about? And magnify that to a larger scale, to a macro scale. You talk about this at Indian Muslims who are being dhulm, this is democracy. This is democracy. These are hateful people. They have not accepted our culture. And they deny the reality. And denial is the worst. All this is happening and it's all denial. Nothing. Bil'aks, nothing has happened. Millions have been killed. Nothing has happened. Countries have lost civilizations. Mosul, Basra, Damascus, Dar'a, Sana'a, Kashmir, India, Muslim, millions of people, not just humans, history. The masjid that Nuruddin Zengi built, destroyed. No one denial. And the President of the United States of America said, yes, we did not find any weapons of mass destruction, but I believe that Iraq is in a better state in the future. What? How can you say that? Brothers and sisters, this is the obvious stuff that I'm saying. You could read this and watch this. But what is our responsibility? Brother, the first thing we have to do is, we always talk about prayer. Let's make dua. Let's all do qiyam. The Prophet ﷺ, he was very sensitive. Very sensitive. In Bir Mauna, 70 Sahaba were killed. 70. Some narration said, not for 1 month, for 1 year the Prophet did qunut. And he cursed them. But one authentic narration says for 1 month straight the Prophet was hurt. He was hurt that 70 of his men and his companions were treacherously killed. He was sensitive. He could easily say, we have a big Medina, let's focus on the positive. He focused on the positive, but he didn't stop worrying about what happened. For 1 month, the most merciful person in the world was cursing someone. They did treachery. I'm not here to tell you to curse anybody. But it's very important that we make dua for those who are suffering. Have feelings, have thoughts, discuss this with our families. What is happening in India? Why? Let's look up the videos. Everyone is highlighting COVID, nothing. Everyone's focusing on Ukraine. But, is there not children in Palestine that are suffering? This is exactly what we've been saying about Syria. This is exactly what we've been saying about people invading Muslim countries for years. No one has brought this up. Last but not the least, brothers and sisters, we may think these foreign issues is in India. We may think these conflicts are in the Middle East. It's no. These conflicts are organized, and the nucleus of these conflicts are exactly where you sit. People are lobbying in this country for the far-right extremist parties in India. In Michigan, in Flint, and Muslims are here, no disrespect to anyone, we're worried about our bank balances, we're worried about our stocks, we're worried about our children's education. They do the same thing, but they unite for a certain cause. They politically get involved. I'm not a politician, I'm not a strategist, I don't know nothing about this. We should sit down. Sit down with the experts. What can we do? We should have Muslim representation from city to state. From state to national levels. It's enough that we are lobbying. Listen to what we do. We lobby for a non-Muslim to speak our voice. And then he goes to a Hindu fundraiser, they give him $500,000. What is our 60,000 in front of that governor? It's nothing. Just think about the value of money. It absolutely means nothing. As a fundraiser, if I go somewhere and I get 60,000 and someone's promising me $500,000, I might even pick up this call. I have better places, more money to make. And that money speaks. And they're doing this from universities to hospitals. To such an extent, Muslim residents who are qualified, who want to get residency names, hospitals, just for qualified Muslim youngsters cannot get a job because there's discrimination on the top. And it's happening from extremist Hindus. They're bringing their people up. That's what I have to say. Bring your generation up. Support your youth. If you are in the hospital, in the medical field, in the engineering field, you have connections at Microsoft, at Apple, at Google, bring the youth up. Even if this youth family you don't like, support them. Build them to a level that one day they will give back to the ummah. Even if you don't like what they're doing. They're from one ummah. So this person comes up to me, I have personal conflict. Have a Muslim. Write a recommendation letter. We should see the prosperity of the ummah and tell the youngster, you have to give back. You have to give back. Brothers and sisters, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. That we make dua and then we strategize. And number 3, we support our youth. We come to the top, not only in medicine, not only in engineering, not only in finance, but academia and politics. Anything that we can do to mobilize, to strategize, to help the Muslim ummah, because tears have dried. The eyes have dried. People have been crying for 10, 12 years. Are we going to talk about this 12 years later? Same thing. Another Shaykh will stand and give khutbah, say, brothers, sisters, we've been crying. I'm telling you, I don't believe in tears. Tears are good at tahajjud time. But during the day, it's all action and strategy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me tawfiq to live the tears at night and practice by day. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الحمد لله نستعين ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد ان سيدنا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد عبده ورسوله ارسله شاهدا مبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا الى الله باذنه وسراجا منيرا اما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات اللهم اغفر لجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والأحياء من الأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات اللهم اشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا إنك حقا على كل شيء قدير اللهم انصر المسلمين المستضعفين في الشام وفي غزة وفي بورما وفي العراق وفي كشمير وفي هند وفي يمن وفي السودان وفي سائر بلاد المسلمين وغيرهم يا رب العالمين اللهم نفس كروبهم وهمومهم وغمومهم اللهم رد المسلمين إلى دينك ردا جميلا عاجلا قريبا يا رب المستضعفين آمين 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 عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروني ولا تكفروا استقيموا واعتدلوا